Hello and good morning dear students and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let us start with today's Hindu news analysis. We'll first discuss the topics that we have taken for today. First we have Water Mission may miss the 2024 target. The Jal Jeevan Mission, which is one of the flagship scheme of the government, there are chances, according to analysis done by Hindu, that it might miss its target of providing tapped water to all the rural households by the year 2024. Now this topic, it can be a part of GS paper 2, which is regarding schemes, various policies and schemes of the government. The second topic is very important one, which is about the Artemis Accords. Now India signed the Artemis Accords and became the 27th country to sign it on 21st June. So why are these accords important? What will be the benefits that India will get from this accord? We'll take a look at that. Now this topic, it is important for GS3 mainly because it is related to space technology. However, it can also be a part of GS2 because it is related to cooperation between the various countries with regards to space. The third topic, it is about our neighbor China. Now China has recently passed a new law on foreign relations. What is the law? How will it affect India? So it is a part of International Affairs GS paper 2. In the prelim section, we have 3 articles lined up. One is about the PRISM scheme. The first one is about PRISM scheme. The second one is about how India has recently added 664 animal species and approximately 350 plant species to its data, to its entire bank. Next we have, has the search for extraterrestrial life in our solar system shown any promises? In this we'll talk about the Cassini-Huygens mission of NASA, ESA and the Italian Space Agency. So before we start the session, one small clarification regarding the yesterday's CNA. I talked about nautical mile. So there was a small mistake that I committed over there. So nautical mile is not the distance between one latitude. It is not the distance between 0 degree to 1 degree latitude. It is actually the distance between 1 minute, distance that is between 0 minute to 1 minute. Now every degree of latitude, it is divided into 60 minutes. So the distance between 1 minute, that is the distance to travel from 1 minute to second minute of that latitude, it is a nautical mile, which is equivalent to 1.852 kilometer. Okay. Now let us start our first topic, which is about the water mission. Now the context is that an analysis that was done by the Hindu paper, or research done by the paper, it revealed that the Jal Jeevan Mission, the flagship program of the government of India, with a target to provide 100%, to cover 100% rural households with functioning tap water, it might not achieve its target of covering the entire 100% rural households. The target might fall short of 25%. That is, by 2024, we might be able to cover only 75% of the households. Now, when the scheme, it was launched in the year 2019, and when it was launched, only 16% of the rural households had access to tapped water. Right now, according to the data from Jal Shakti Ministry, this has gone up to 68%. So basically, there have been 9.1 crore households that have benefited from this scheme. Currently, only 8 states of India, they have 100% rural water coverage. But of these 8 states, all these states, they had very well coverage even before the scheme started, even before 2019. Out of these 8 states, 3 states, that is Haryana, Gujarat and Punjab, they had 50% or more than 50% coverage even before the scheme started in 2019. Now let us talk a little briefly about what is the Jal Jeevan Mission. It was launched in the year 2019 with the aim to provide potable water to all the rural households. And how would that be done? By providing functional household taps to every household in the rural areas. The target for providing water was set as every person living in a household will get at least 55 liters of water per day. So if 5 people are living, each of these 5 people will have access to at least 55 liters of water every day. There was also a clause of promoting rainwater harvesting, and within this scheme there were funds that were allocated for developing the infrastructure for rainwater harvesting. What was the funding structure? For the Himalayan states and the northeastern states, 90% would be given by the center, 10% would be the contribution of the states, and for the rest of the states it was 50-50. So that means it is a centrally sponsored scheme. The central sector schemes, the funding of central sector schemes is 100% from the center. Centrally sponsored schemes, they have a share that this much center will provide, this much the state will provide. Now, what are the reasons for this shortfall? Why is this analysis saying that we will not be able to cover 100% of the rural households? The first reason was that since the scheme was announced in 2019, 2 years, 2020 and 2021, they were the pandemic years. During the pandemic years, there was a disruption of supply chains. There was no availability of the laborers. There was lockdown that was in force in the country. So no work could have been done because of the pandemic. Next, the Ukraine war. In February 2022, Russia attacked Ukraine and the war in Ukraine started. Now Ukraine, it is one of the big suppliers of both steel as well as cement. Apart from that, because of the Ukraine war, there was a huge disruption of entire supply chain lines. So that led to what? An increase in the prices of both steel and cement. Now when you want to put a tap in your house, you need pipes and you need cement in order to put the pipes in the place. So steel and cement are two very important components that were required for this mission. However, because of disruption of the supply chains and also because of increase in prices and the subsequent negotiations that were undertaken with the various companies that were providing these equipments, it took a lot of time. There is also a lack of skilled labor in many of the states. So there is a necessity of skilled labor, the labor which are skilled in plumbing, skilled in construction. So there is an extensive shortage of such skilled labor in many of the states for construction of various storage structures like tanks, like cisterns, and for laying the pipes for water connections. Moreover, there is a lack of availability of water, of clean water in many of the states. Like in the state of Rajasthan, you all know it is a very arid state. So there is a lack in availability of water with regards to the quantity of water that is available. In many of the states where there is a very high population pressure, a lot of groundwater it is being extracted, there is a problem of contamination of water in those regions. So because of this contamination water, quality water is not available that can be supplied to the houses. So there is lack of availability of water both in terms of quality as well as quantity. Lastly, there are certain political reasons. Now because there is a sharing with the center, so when any village it is declared as a Har Ghar Jal village, then there needs to be an advertisement, there needs to be a picture that need to be put out about that village with the images of the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister. Now many states which do not have the same government as the center, they are refraining from taking the central support. Because if they take the central support, they'll have to put such images and pictures, and they are not willing to do that. So because of all these reasons, there is a chance that, because of all these reasons, especially these reasons, there was no construction. The construction of these functional taps, they were delayed for almost 2 years. And that is why we are facing a delay in the completion of this particular scheme. Now what does the data say? You need data to write in your answers to give the evidence that yes, what you are saying is correct. So what does the data say? There were a targeted 19.5 crore households for the scheme to ensure 100% coverage was undertaken. However, in 5% of these households, the work has not even started. We have not even started any kind of survey, any kind of work. Now, according to the officials that were interviewed by the Hindu, they said that if the village has a proper water source, even in those cases, for completion of the scheme, it takes at least 8 months. Now, in many villages, we do not have quantity and quality of water available for the scheme. So, in those villages, there will be more than 8 months that will be taken for completion of this project. There is expectation, the same official also said that there is an expectation that only 75% of the households, they will get covered by March 2024 and only 80% by December 2024. Right now, Jal Shakti Ministry says 68% are covered. Also, of the villages that have reported themselves as the Har Ghar Jal villages, that is the villages which have completely provided the tapped water to all the residents of the village. Of those villages, only 34% have been certified as Har Ghar Jal villages. The villages are claiming that they have provided this scheme to everyone. However, only 34% have been verified, have been certified as having provided this scheme. In Rajasthan, in the state of Rajasthan, only 1.5% of the villages are certified as Har Ghar Jal villages. In UP, only 3% of these villages are certified. Moreover, apart from the certification process, a survey was done by the National WASH, that is Water Sanitation and Hygiene Panel experts. This survey was conducted in 13,303 villages, out of which 5,298 villages were already Har Ghar Jal villages. Now, according to this survey that was done by the National WASH panel, only 62% of the households had functional connections. So this is about this particular scheme. Now, why is this particular topic important? Because many times the UPSC, it might also ask you regarding the evaluation of certain schemes. Now, because in 2024, this scheme, it will complete its 5 years, it will complete the range which was given to it to complete its target. That's why it becomes important to read about this scheme. The next topic is about the Artemis Accords. So our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, he visited USA. He started his visit on 21st June. On the same day, we became the 27th country to sign the Artemis Accords. The same day, the 26th country, that is Ecuador, which is a South American country, it also became a part of this accord. So India has become the 27th signatory to this accord. In this map, you can see which all countries, they are already a part of this accord. Now this particular moment is very important for us. Why? Because India has recently started liberalizing its space sector. In fact, in late March or early April, we also released our Indian space policy. However, the space policy, the entire document, is yet to be released by the government. Another reason why this is important is because there is a space race 2.0 that is going on currently. So in 1950s and 60s, during the Cold War era, what was happening? There was a space race between USA and China. Sorry, USA and Russia, right? And that led to a rapid development in space technology during that duration. Now what has happened? China has replaced Russia. That time it was USSR, which eventually became Russia. But now China has replaced USSR as the top contender of space race with USA. So what is happening? That China collaborated with Russia and planned for setting up an international lunar research station. However, because of the Ukraine war, what is happening? Russia, it is losing its economic power. It is facing certain problems, economic problems, and due to that, China has now taken a lead in this particular program. So to race with China, USA is also bringing in all its partners under one umbrella in order to improve the space technology of both USA as well as the partner nations. So what is Artemis Accords? See, Artemis Accord, it was established in the year 2020. It had 8 founding members led by USA. So the members were USA, Australia, Canada, Italy, Japan, Luxembourg, UAE and UK. Now, under this accord, there are certain conditions that the signatories, they will have to follow. The signatories, they must implement a memorandum of understanding to conduct all the space activities, all their space activities in accordance with the international law. There were many treaties regarding space that were signed during 1960s and 1970s. The most important one being Outer Space Treaty. It was signed, these treaties were signed to ensure that there was peaceful use of the space. There was no militarization of the space. So the signatories of this accord, they need to ensure that everyone will use the space in accordance with the international laws. They are also committed, all the signatories, they also need to commit to share the national space policies in a very transparent manner. There should not be any clandestine clauses inserted into the national space policies. It should be very transparently released to all the partner nations. Also, any kind of scientific information that results from their space activities, it should also be shared with the public as well as with the international scientific community. So here they have to sign an MOU for peaceful use of space according to international law. They have to transparently release their space policies. They have to ensure that all the information gathered due to space activities, it is shared with the public. Next, the signatories, they need to recognize the common exploration infrastructure. What is included in common exploration infrastructure? We have fuel storage and delivery systems, landing structures, communication and power systems. So, all the signatories, they need to recognize this common exploration infrastructure, so that this infrastructure, it can be used by all the members of the Artemis Accord to enhance scientific discovery and commercial utilization of this infrastructure. Moreover, if there is any personnel in the outer space that is in distress, all these countries, they are committed to help, to provide necessary assistance to those people. Moreover, any kind of object that is being launched by the signatory in the space, it should be registered. It should be registered by the signatory. For example, in India, a lot of satellites are being released. Now, due to Indian space policy, even the private sector is now allowed to launch satellites, launch rockets and other things. So everything, the detail of all these space objects, it should be there with India, and it should be shared, openly shared with the community in a timely manner. Moreover, there is a recognition to space heritage. Space heritage includes the historic human or robotic landing sites, like the lunar landing site of Apollo mission, the Curiosity mission and the Mars and other things. Various artifacts and evidence of activity on the various celestial bodies. For example, there are footprints on the moon, right? So these footprints, they cannot be erased by any of the signatory. All the signatories, they should preserve and respect this space heritage. Also, the utilization of all the resources from the space, any kind of minerals that are extracted from the surface of moon, from Mars, comets or asteroids, all this extraction should be done in a very safe and sustainable manner. It should not interfere with the safety of the earth, with the safety of the people involved in the mission. Now this particular clause, it goes against the clauses of Moon Agreement. So Moon Agreement, it was signed by the countries in 1970s. India also signed this agreement, however India never ratified it. Okay, so it was never in force in India. Moreover, countries like USSR and USA did not even sign it. According to Moon Agreement, any kind of extraction of resources from the moon was not allowed. However, Artemis Accord, it allows this extraction from moon and other celestial bodies, but it must be ensured that this extraction should be very safe and it should be sustainable in nature. Moreover, the usage of such resources by any of the signatories of the Artemis Accords, it should not interfere with that of another signatory. So there should not be any tussle for resources in the outer space. Also, the information regarding the location and nature of any kind of space-based activities for extraction work, it should be shared between the various countries. All the countries, they must share this information to create a safety zone to avoid any such interference between the activities of each other. Also, the members, they should plan essentially that there should be mitigation of orbital debris. If any of you have watched this movie known as Gravity, you would know that what kind of damage can the debris in the space cause, right? So all the countries, they should ensure that they will minimize the amount of debris in the space, and they will safely dispose the spacecrafts at the end of the mission. At the end of the mission, the spacecrafts, they would not be left in the space. They would be brought back and properly disposed of. There should also be a limitation of generation of new, long-lived, harmful debris in the space. However, note one thing please, that when we were talking about sharing of information by the signatories with each other, information that has been extracted through their space missions, this does not include the information that is extracted by the private players. For example, there is a company known as ABC in India, which is a space company. So ABC, it launched a particular project on its own and it gathered certain information. Now there is no liability on ABC to share that information to all the signatories of Artemis Accord, because it is India that has signed the accord. That private sector company has not signed it. However, if ABC, it is working for a project of ISRO, then in that case ABC will have to release the information, because ISRO is the state agency and state is the signatory to Artemis Accord. Now let us take a look at what is the Artemis program. Now in the Greek mythology, there were two twins, Apollo and Artemis. So they were brother and sister. Artemis was the sister. So Apollo mission, if you remember, it was the first mission that put man on the moon. Artemis is its sister mission that will again aim to do the same. So under the Artemis mission, we have three programs, Artemis 1, 2 and 3. Artemis 1 has already taken place successfully. In this program, in this mission, that lasted between 16th November to 11th December 2022, NASA, National Aeronautical Space Agency of USA, it launched Orion. What is Orion? It is built by NASA and it is a super heavy lift launch vehicle. So Orion was launched by NASA. Now this was an unmanned mission. There was no crew that was in Orion, and it undertook a lunar flyby. So this is moon, this is earth. Orion undertook a lunar flyby and it came back to the earth. Artemis 2, it will be a manned mission, a manned flyby mission. So it will also have Orion, that is the SLS, the super heavy lift launch vehicle. Within Orion, last time there was no crew. This time there will be crew. So 4 people, they will be aboard this SLS Orion. They will again undertake a lunar flyby. They are not yet landing on the moon. They are just undertaking a flyby while conducting various experiments on the orbit, like communication, life support, navigation, and perform various other proximity operation demonstrations. So all these activities, all these experiments that will be done in the second Artemis mission, they will help the third Artemis mission, which will finally put man again on the surface of moon. So the third Artemis mission, it will take place somewhere between 2025, 26. Here again there will be a 4-member crew and it will land on the moon. They will land on the moon for a week. They will conduct a week-long lunar exploration, perform a lunar flyby, and then they will return back to Earth. So this is about the Artemis program of NASA. Now how will India benefit because of this Artemis Accord? See, because of this accord, India becomes a part of NASA mission that will be landing humans on moon by 2025. This does not mean that there will be Indian astronauts that will be included in the crew of 4, but India will assist USA in this particular mission. It will get all the information that is gathered because of this mission. ISRO will also now become a part of the future NASA missions that will be for setting up a base on the moon, just like China is trying, and for Mars landing. India also aims, India has a dream to have its own space station, just like China has. So by signing this Artemis mission, because there will be extensive technology transfer, extensive help provided from the other space agency, ISRO will be able to do this as well in the upcoming future. There will be technology transfer and exchange of very important information that will be gathered from all the space missions of the partner countries. Moreover, most importantly, India is trying to increase its investment in the space sector, increase the private investment in the space sector. So, because we have become a part of Artemis mission, this will ensure that there will be a lot of activities in our future with regards to collaborative efforts with the different very reliable space agencies and the global leaders. So this will enhance the India space sector and it will give a boost to the ancillary industries as well. So the private industries that help ISRO by providing certain equipments for its missions, they will also get benefited because of this accord. Moreover, please note that because of accord, this accord does not say that all the agencies, they will have to provide some amount of money to a pool. There is no such pool. So there will be no financial implication on ISRO as such because of this accord. However, if we want to get all the benefit of joining this accord, we'll have to increase the space spending as well. We'll have to increase our research abilities. We'll have to increase our ability to conduct interplanetary missions. Because if we want to extract the resources from the other planets, from other celestial bodies, we'll have to definitely step up our game. Okay, so this is about this second topic, which is regarding Artemis Accords. Now the third topic again before we start this, here is India Space Policy 2023, major provisions that are available in the public domain. The entire policy document hasn't been released yet to the public. So this space policy, it aims at increasing the role of private sector in our space programs. So this delineates the various roles for the various space agencies of India under the Department of Space. First, ISRO will get the work mainly of research and development. It will step back from the operational and production work, which will eventually go to who? The private sector. The NSIL, New Space India Limited, it will be the operational and strategic arm of ISRO of the Department of Space, and it will also be a marketing arm of the Department of Space. So all the information that we gather because of the research and development work of ISRO, it can be used by the private sector or other countries by purchasing it from the NSIL. The INSpace, Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, it will be the interface, a middleman between ISRO and the non-governmental agencies who want to use either the infrastructure or any kind of information that has been created by ISRO. The private sector has now been allowed to enter into end-to-end activities. Up until now, they used to perform only supportive work. They used to support ISRO with their missions. Now the private sector, it has the freedom to make their own satellites, to make their own rockets, their launch vehicles, and undertake space activities, gather information, gather communication from the space and everything. They can even commercially use this information. They can sell this information to other agencies. This policy also encourages the private sector to invest in space infrastructure in the country, so that India's space infrastructure becomes a world-class infrastructure and other countries, they can be rented this infrastructure whenever needed. Moreover, the facilities of ISRO, the launching stations and other facilities of ISRO, they can be used by the private sector by paying a certain fee. And here again, the in-space will act as a middleman between ISRO and the private agencies. Now we come to the next topic, which again is about China. So what is this topic? So much information in this article. Let us break it down. See, the context is that Chinese legislature, which is also known as China's National People's Congress, it adopted a new law. This law, it was passed on June 27, and it comes into effect today, from yesterday, that is 1st July. So what is this law? It is a law on foreign relations of the People's Republic of China. This is the name of the law. Law on foreign relations of People's Republic of China. So what will this law do? It will mainly further centralize the foreign policy of China. In the year 2012, the current president of China, Xi Jinping, he was elected as the president. Since then, Xi Jinping has now been elected as the president of China for life, as long as he is alive. Okay. So Xi Jinping, he started centralizing all the policies. So he has the control of all the policies of China, and this particular law will further help in increasing this level of centralization. The reason why it was drafted, why this policy was drafted, was to safeguard the sovereignty, national security and developmental interest of China. Now this law, it very much coincides with the issue that many experts are saying that China is now moving away from development as the focus, development and opening up of its markets and economy as the focus, to security becoming the new focus of China, right? So that is why it is very important that we take a deeper look at this law. Now this law, it is very much similar to another law that was passed in the year 2021. What was this law? It was the border law of October 2021 that warned against any act that undermines the territorial sovereignty and land boundaries of China. Now India being a neighboring country of China, for us both these laws, they become very important. So let us take a look at this new law, the various clauses and provisions of this law. The law, it gives a legal stamp, a legal position to many of the key objectives of the Chinese foreign policy that came after the coming in of Mr. Xi Jinping. The law, it makes it a punishable offense, okay? This is important. It makes it a punishable offense if any individual or any organization, it acts against any of those objectives that have been enumerated during the reign of Mr. Xi. It specifically mentioned within the law, it is mentioned, a few of these objectives are mentioned separately. What are these? Belt and Road Initiative. You must know about this by now. It is a very common initiative of China. India has refused to join this initiative. There is Global Development Initiative. Now the Global Development Initiative, it is an initiative to help the various countries of the world achieve the goals of Agenda 2023. That is the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. SDGs 2015 to 30. So under this, China has increased its amount of funding for this developmental work to make development as a big focus for the countries around the world. So under this, China has started the Global Development and South-South Cooperation Fund. It has also increased its contribution to the China UN Peace and Development Fund. Also under this GDI, it aims to set up a Global Development Promotion Center. So if you know something about debt diplomacy, this is something related to that itself. Moreover, there is another initiative, Global Security Initiative. Now this initiative has been started by China specifically against the increased influence of USA within Asia and Pacific region. Main things are, it is against the US's US's Indo-Pacific policy and creation of the Quad grouping, of which India is a part. So China is openly saying that this policies of USA, this creation of Quad grouping, the AUKUS grouping, it is eventually leading up to creation of the Asian NATO, which will be very dangerous for peace, security and prosperity of Asia. Apart from this, this law also emphasizes on security and sovereignty being at the heart of Chinese foreign policy. So clearly you can see that there is a move away from focus on economy and development to security and sovereignty. This law also establishes a very aggressive stance of China. China will do anything to safeguard its security and sovereignty. So the state has the right to take, as called for, various measures to counter or take any kind of restrictive measures against acts that are impacting its sovereignty, national security and developmental interest. Moreover, the state can also take measures as necessary in accordance with this particular law to protect the safety, security and legitimate rights and interests of Chinese citizens and organizations overseas and safeguard China's overseas interest against any kind of threat and infringement. If you remember, there was a case, there was a tussle between China and USA Canada regarding Huawei. So one of the officials of Huawei, they were detained in these countries. So this can be an answer to that kind of activity, that China, it will support the safety and security of its nationals and its infrastructures and organizations, even if they are in some other country, even if they are not currently in China. Also, it concretely establishes a response against the Western sanctions. During the reign of President Trump, there were certain sanctions that were placed on China, and China in response to that also placed certain sanctions on USA. So through this law, it is clearly saying that there will be repercussions in case of any kind of sanctions being placed on China. This is reinforcing another law of China, which is the law on countering sanctions. So what will it do? What is this doing now? It will essentially make it illegal for any Western countries that are operating in China to comply with these sanctions. If there is a US company that is working in China, however, US has applied certain sanctions on China, this company, if it still wants to function in China, it will have to not follow those sanctions. Okay, now this becomes important. Why? Because one, China is a very important manufacturing base. Second, it is also a very good market. Also, many companies, they get their raw materials from China. So, they are putting pressure on the private companies to ensure that they lobby against any kind of sanctions against China. Moreover, this has a clause against the alleged debt diplomacy of China. What is debt diplomacy? That China provides a lot of money, a lot of loans to the countries, and when they are not able to pay back those loans, then China starts manipulating with their internal politics and foreign policy, right? We have seen such things happen where in Pakistan, even in Sri Lanka, these are just two neighboring countries. So according to 19th article of this law, China would respect the sovereignty of the recipient countries. So any country which is getting any kind of infrastructural support, any developmental assistance from China, China will not on principle interfere in the sovereignty of this country. It will not interfere in their internal affairs, or will also not attach any kind of political conditions to its aid. So there will be no condition like, if I am giving you this money, you'll have to do this for me, you'll have to shun India or something like that. So China is clearly stating under Article 19 that this debt diplomacy that China is becoming infamous for, this is not something that is true. We are just providing them help for their development. What will be the impact on India? India shares a long border with China. We have a lot of boundary disputes. The entire state of Arunachal Pradesh, it is being claimed by China. The region of Aksai Chin and Leh Ladakh, it is being claimed by China, right? So in this regard, it becomes very important for India to take a note of this law. This law, along with the border law of 2021, it very suspiciously coincides with the increase in skirmishes at the LAC, the border, the northern border between India and China, line of actual control. Now, through these laws, China has clearly stated that any kind of border disputes, they are a matter for their national sovereignty, and these are not something that can be negotiated with the other country. So this is not something that India and China can sit together and negotiate about. If China has declared that this is their national property, this is their territory, it is a matter of their national sovereignty, and they'll do anything to support that claim. The Article 31 of this law, it says that implementation and application of treaties and agreements, any treaties, any agreements, global, bilateral, they will not undermine the sovereignty of the state, its national security and public interest. So this particular article, it might become a roadblock in signing of any dispute resolution agreements with China. Also, this law might have certain economic consequences as well. What kind of economic consequences? Article 8, it says that any individual or organization who commits acts that are detrimental to China's national interest. Detrimental to China's national interest. Now, this is an important phrase. In violation of this law and any other applicable law in the course of engaging with international exchanges shall be held accountable. Now here, China has not mentioned that what will be detrimental to China's national interest. Now India, it imports a lot of important equipments, important materials from China, like rare earth metals, like active pharmaceutical ingredients. So if suppose India, China does not want India to get all this, they can say that the companies that are providing India with these, they are working in a way that is detrimental to China's national interest, and this might create a vacuum in the supply chains, in the supply lines between India and China. Moreover, China is also trying to promote its flavor of governance. In Article 17, it is saying that the main aim of the foreign relations of China with any other country is to uphold the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics. And apart from that, the same thing, safeguarding of sovereignty, unification and territorial integrity, promote its economic and social development. So basically, they can say that this particular country, it is not helping us support the Chinese way of socialism. They are not doing it in the Chinese way. So through this, they can manipulate the other countries to adopt the same systems of governance. Lastly, this will also cover the national sovereignty of China, will also cover the South China Sea that we covered yesterday, right? So India also has certain economic interest in the South China Sea, like the ONGC Videsh Limited's oil blocks in Vietnam. We are trying to have relations with Philippines. We are trying to export the BrahMos missile to certain Southeast Asian countries, right? So all this will also be affected. All this will affect the economic interests of India. So this is about this Chinese law and what will be the impact of this law on India. Next we come to the Prelims Bytes. In the Prelims Bytes, the first article is about this 24-hour hotline that is available for the various members of parliament to collect research material. Now India believes in what? Evidence-based policy making. So what is evidence? Any data that is gained from any kind of research. Now, if the MPs, if the lawmakers do not have access to this data, then the policies that are created, they will also be faulty. Many times what happens that the first time MPs or the MPs who do not have a big secretarial staff, that means they do not have the resources, the research associates who can conduct the research and provide them with the data, they face a problem in gathering this information. So for that, PRISM, that is Parliamentary Research and Information Support System, it was launched for the members of Parliament. So it is established specially for these first time MPs and the MPs who have less amount of secretarial staff. Now this is a 24/7 hotline which have at least 30 to 32 officers who will help these MPs gather the data that they want. This data can be provided on this hotline itself. It can also be emailed and or put on WhatsApp for the ease of these MPs. So this will help in what? Well-informed discussions in the parliament, well-informed creation of the policies so that these policies do have an impact on the grassroots levels. So between 2019 to 2023, in 2019 it was launched. In these 4 years, 87% of the members of parliaments, both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they have used either the online or the offline services of PRISM. The next is about how India has added 664 animal species and 339 plant species to its database. Okay, so we have a huge database of animals and plants. Now every year there is a new discovery of new species of plants and animals. So they need to be added to the database, the national database. There are also certain species of plants and animals that have already been discovered at some place in the world. However, it is first time that it is discovered in India as well. So we need to add those as well to our database. So The recent revision of this database, it shows that we have added 664 animal species, out of which 467 are brand new species that have not been discovered anywhere else in the world, and 197 are new records. That is, these species were found in India for the first time. With regards to floral species or plant species, 186 new species have been found, and 153 new distributional records have been found from the country for 153 species. That means these species are found in India for the first time. Now this faunal discovery, it is published by the Zoological Survey of India. This is the nodal agency to publish this animal discoveries, new species and new records. This report that comes every year. The floral report, that is Plant Discoveries 2022, it is published by the Botanical Survey of India. So this is 22, this is 23, this is not a mistake, these are the actual names of these reports. Now when it comes to the faunal species, in India the maximum discoveries in this particular year, they were made from the state of Kerala, where 14.6% of new species and new records they have been found. Next comes Karnataka, then Tamil Nadu, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, West Bengal and Arunachal Pradesh. So with this addition, the total database of India when it comes to faunal species, it comes up to 1,03,922. Now the last topic, which is about the Cassini mission. Now Cassini-Huygens mission, which explored the Saturn's moon Enceladus, it found that there was a presence of phosphorus in its subsurface oceans. So Enceladus, it is a moon of Saturn. So Cassini-Huygens mission, it studied the plumes of grain of rice and gases that are coming out of this moon through its cracks. So it studied those samples and it found that they are rich in phosphorus. Now phosphorus, it is a very important building block for life on Earth. Our DNA, our RNA, our cell membranes, many energy carrying molecules, they all have phosphorus as a very important content. So this increases our hope for finding alternate life forms in our solar system. Now about the Cassini-Huygens mission. This was a combined mission of 3 space agencies. One was NASA, second was European Space Agency, and the third was the Italian Space Agency. It was launched in 1997 and it worked till 2017. In 2017, it finally ran out of fuel. Now, this was a mission of many firsts. It was the first mission to orbit Saturn. Before this, there were Pioneer, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, which did not orbit Saturn. They just made a flyby across Saturn. So this was the first mission to orbit Saturn. It was also a first mission to land on a planetary system outside solar system. So it landed on one of the moons, the Huygens probe, the Huygens space probe that was being carried by Cassini. It landed on Saturn's moon Titan. Also, it was the first mission to sample an extraterrestrial ocean. It sampled certain samples from Enceladus subsurface oceans. So it studied plumes of ice grains and gases erupting from the surface of the moon. The mission, it studied the moon Titan and it found it to be very similar to Earth. Similar in what ways? The atmosphere, it is majorly made up of nitrogen and methane. Apart from that, the hydrological cycle that we see on the Earth, where the water, it flows on the surface, it evaporates, it rains down. A similar cycle is seen on Titan as well. However, while on Earth the cycle is related to H2O or water, on Titan it is related to methane and ethane. So there are rivers of methane and ethane on this planet. It rains liquid methane and ethane on Titan. Also, this particular project, this mission also studied the atmosphere of Saturn, which is smoggy, a very smoggy atmosphere, and provided us with a lot of information about how planets are formed. So just to recap the entire thing, first we studied about what? The National Water Mission, the Jal Jeevan Mission. What are the reasons it is getting delayed? What is the statistic with regards to the completion of the projects under Jal Jeevan Mission? Second, we talked about the Artemis mission. What is this mission? Started under the leadership of USA in 2020. What are the various clauses that the signatories they have to follow? How India will benefit from becoming the 27th country to sign this accord. Next, we talked about another very important topic, that is China's law on its foreign policy. How China is centralizing its foreign policy and how it will not see any kind of interference in sovereignty and security of China. We also saw how India will get affected because of that. In the prelim section, we talked about the PRISM scheme, which will help the various members of parliaments, the various ministers in making more informed decisions, more informed discussions in the parliament. It was started in 2019. Then we talked about how there has been addition of many new species of flora and fauna in the Indian flora and fauna databases. And lastly, we studied how Cassini and Huygens, what is that mission, when it was started, what were the various contributions of this mission, and how it was able to discover the presence of phosphorus in one of the moons of Saturn. So now we come to the mains practice questions. The first is, what is Artemis mission and Artemis Accords? So you have to deal with both of them separately. First talk about Artemis mission 1, 2 and 3. Then talk about the accords and what are the various provisions of the accord. Enumerate the benefits that India will accrue on signing this Artemis Accord. These benefits, they have also been discussed in this PPT. Next, the law on foreign relations of People's Republic of China will have far-reaching impact on the peace and security of not just India, but the entire world. Do you agree? So this is an opinion-based question. You might agree, you might disagree, but on the basis of evidence what we saw in the article today, we'll have to agree that China, it has shown that it will not refrain itself from interfering in any of the issues that are related to its sovereignty, national security and developmental initiatives. You can talk about first India, how India will get affected, and next you can talk about how there can be global repercussions. You can talk about the South China Sea, how the increasing role of US in the Indo-Pacific, it is threatening China, and that is why it came up with the Global Security Initiative. Okay, so that is all about today's Hindu news analysis. I hope you were able to understand everything. So thank you very much and have a very good day ahead.